All right, so today we've got Bucko. Welcome aboard, mate. Thanks for coming.
Not a
Thanks
problem.
for accepting the invite, mate. I much appreciate it.
More than happy to pitch in and help out.
Yeah, could turn out that you might be number one. Who knows? We'll wait and see. Got a couple of guys, a couple of other guys hooked up potentially. So we'll wait and see how that all goes. So how you been? Been all right?
Yeah, very well.
Yeah.
Loving the new A320 lifestyle.
Loving the A320 lifestyle, man. That would be nice. How's that all going for you? Your new job?
Yeah, very well. Yeah, settling into the new routine.
Yeah.
Getting used to the shift work nature of it a bit more.
A bit different to your previous job in the Air Force, no doubt. Definitely.
100%. So much more family time already.
Is it? As we can tell today, because it's Tuesday, like Tuesday morning, and we're both sitting at home doing not a lot. So it works out quite well for us. I love it. That's awesome. Hey, yeah. So what's the A320 like to fly compared to the what you used to fly the C-130J? So what's the A320 like?
I'd say by comparison, comfortable and convenient.
Yeah.
And the two big things I'd throw out there. I think the only things I've missed from the Hercules are the heads-up display and the quality of the weather radar.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Sure, you throw it around low level, things like that as well. You do cool things with it, but in terms of just the basics of actually flying it, those are the two big perks of the Hercs, and nearly everything else, the Airbus has got it covered.
Yeah, right. No, the heads-up display, so that would be an interesting thing. I've never, not being a pilot myself, I've never actually used one. So, yeah, just having that, I guess just having that carrot there when you're coming into land and that sort of stuff would be so much easier, right?
That's right, yeah. Yeah, so some unlearning to go back to the system, having a good solid heads down scan while looking out at the runway and judging all those cues visually again, instead of just performance flying the hell out of it with the heads up display.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, and yeah, the heads up has got all that other information: airspeed, altitude, whatever else it gives you. Yeah, that would be hard going backwards from that. Yeah, damn. And what about the radar? Yeah, so do you find it? Do you find with the less degraded radar, like that it puts you in a situation that you really need a better quality radar, or do you find it works out okay for you most of the time?
It still works out okay. It's just it doesn't paint me as good a picture, and I have a bit less confidence in the picture it's giving me. Sometimes see big patch of yellow painting on the radar coming up ahead, and my mental model of what yellow is going to feel like, how bad the turbulence is going to be, and how bad the rain associated with it, comes from the Hercules radar. So I expect it to be a lot worse than it actually is. And sometimes on the Airbus painting yellow, you pass through it, it was barely a shower, nothing to write home about. And I'm being very careful that doesn't give me a false sense of confidence to just start flying through yellow all the time now, because I think the radar's not as good.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, it might turn out a bit more fun than it's supposed to be.
That's right. Yeah.
Cool. No, that's pretty good. It's good fun. What so how old's the A320 now? Like we're talking like late 80s, I guess.
Yeah, late 80s, I think it was the start to use.
So almost 30 years old. That's pretty cool. What about one thing I'm really interested in is, we'll probably talk about it a bit more as we go, but I want to try to get an idea of automation for you guys, right? So with what I'm doing here with CrewFusion, we're talking about human factors and the elements that control your day, basically, right? As far as the human body goes, and what we're all, what are the factors in our day every single day, right? Now, any pilot that flies a GA aircraft that isn't automated would look at the A320 in flight, and when they see it flying, they'd be like, wow, this is just amazing what it can do. Like, you turn on anti-icing on auto, for example, and it just does it for you, and it's kind of set and forget to a point. Stuff like that. But the kind of things, like some of the recent blogs I've done have tried to get into automation. Like, for example, there was that Asiana Airlines 777 that crashed into the seawall at the end of San Francisco's runway back in sort of 2013, 2014-ish. Can't remember the exact date.
Yep.
But the aircrew relied completely on the automation. Sorry, that was the other way around. they normally rely completely on automation. They did.
Yeah, that's right.
The ILS system was out. They landed it manually and were too slow and ended up hitting the seawall. Right.
That's right.
So,
and one of the big traps of automation, that complacency and loss of manual skills that comes about. Just a perfectly clear day, nothing that should have presented any risk to them other than they were just out of currency, and so they completely mishandle an approach, cause a crash, and unfortunately some fatalities after the crash.
Yeah, that's pretty uncool, and that's kind of one of the things I don't understand, the automation and how it affects your thought processes and the way you fly the aircraft, right? And that's really what I want to get into in these sort of podcasts as I go along, and talk to different people and see what different people are saying about it, right? So the A320 is clearly a highly automated aircraft, and it's even got its own sort of logic systems. It won't do a certain thing until a couple of critical items are met. All right. So I'd love to hear what some of your stories on that, some of your background, what you sort of learned during training, and just differences compared to what you used to. Like, you've flown the PC-9 in the Air Force, you've flown the C-130J, and just what it is, and eventually just dive right down into what automation does to crews, basically.
Yeah, sure.
Depending on what time we've got, we'll see how we go. Yeah.
Well, I think the big part of it comes back to that safety and convenience and the traps that it creates. So all the extra automation in the Airbus is about, the goal is to provide extra safety by making it easier to use, by putting in those buffers to stop you from mishandling the aircraft, and to try and save you if things go wrong or conditions turn against you. So 99% of the time, all of that stuff is great and it's very helpful. So as fully automated as you can go, from 5 seconds after liftoff, you'll put the autopilot in, you'll make sure you've got the right automation modes engaged. You'll sit there and watch as the autopilot follows the flight director all the way through the flight plan, through lateral and vertical modes. It will manage the speeds according to its own schedule, what data you've put in, and then it will fly its way down through the descent, through the approach. You're just intervening to slow at certain times and configure the aircraft. It can then, if the conditions are right, do a fully automated landing, roll out, brake to a stop on the runway, and you still haven't actually touched the controls to take that back over yet.
Is that right?
That's how extreme you can take the automation. So the challenges of being a pilot in that world become different, because you still want to maintain your level of handling skills if the automation either doesn't work or is not doing what you intended or is not capable of performing under the conditions you're in. So you always need to have those skills handy and ready, and you don't want to fall into the trap of having blind trust in what the automation's doing. You want to be keeping those scans going, monitoring all the parameters and seeing that it's not just in the right mode, that's the basic first check, but also that mode is achieving the performance figures that you want. And that can be a bit of a challenge to avoid falling into that complacency trap, that you are still paying due diligence all the time to what the automation is doing.
Yeah, right. Wow, that is nuts. How often do you get, does your company offer you the opportunity to hand fly the aircraft at all?
There's a bit of discretion. So if you are keen to try and maintain some of those skills, you'll delay putting the autopilot in on departure, you'll take the autopilot out early coming into land, and then you at least get some limited time during those dynamic phases of departure and approach to hand fly the aircraft. But even then, with Airbus automation, hand flying is a very different concept to hand flying a Hercules or a GA aircraft. Hand flying without the autopilot in is almost like flying a Hercules with the autopilot in.
Is it? Yeah, right.
Modes engaged. You only move the side stick to change the parameters of your flight. But if you release the side stick, it will sit there and it will hold the bank angle, it will hold the pitch attitude that you've got. And it'll be resistant to disturbances. So it is actually still auto-correcting for the conditions of flight.
Yeah, and it will only let you like bank so far or climb up
that's right.
at a certain rate, won't it? And then it will stop. The aircraft will say, "Hey, hang on, what are you trying to do?"
It's not safe to go past that parameter, so I'm not going to let you. Yeah,
it's pretty sweet. That's awesome. So have you seen the? I was looking the other day. There's that Lufthansa flight 2904. So it was a Lufthansa A320 that was landing into Warsaw, into Chopin Airport in Warsaw. I'm not sure if that's how you say it, but it sounds pretty good. And there was wind shear, so the pilot ended up landing long, and because when he landed the aircraft, he landed it on, like he tried to correct for what he thought the wind shear was going to do. He landed on one main landing gear bogey, and I think the right hand one was still in the air for quite a long, still sort of off the ground for quite a long time, so the thrust reversers and the spoilers wouldn't deploy until we had both main landing gear on the ground plus a certain weight on the ground. What sort of, have you sort of seen that sort of thing? Like, you guys trained for that sort of stuff?
Well, yeah, a few things struck me like immediately just reading over the summary of that crash. Coming in and landing with one main wheel down first before the other, absolutely still normal technique when you have that much of a crosswind coming in for landing. Now, the wind shear specifically refers to a sudden change in the wind you're experiencing as you're descending, so coming into approach. So they were getting ready for that. They didn't expect the tailwind, which becomes a huge factor.
It turned around to come up the tail, didn't it?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Right.
So that's a huge factor in the crash. And then the other one, I think there were enough warning signs there going off, to my mind, sitting here in my 0G, or my 1G cockpit, no distractions. There was a wet runway, there was known wind shear conditions, and it's fairly long runway, but not massive. I think you should be so conscious of your landing performance in that case, and knowing how much ground roll do you need to pull this aircraft up on that wet runway. And then you have a very clear picture in your mind as you're coming into land. What is the latest point that I need both my gear down and all of those systems kicking in that we talked about? So that puts out your spoilers, that puts out your when you move the thrust levers accordingly, that enables you to go thrust reverses. And it will start the automatic braking if you don't manually start it.
Oh, wow.
So you want to have a point in your mind that I need to have touched down both gear and have started that procedure of checking that I've got spoilers, reverses, brakes by a certain point on the runway, and know that I've still got room to pull up. And if you haven't got both gear down and those systems kicking in by that point, well, you know you're not going to make it. You haven't committed to landing yet. That's time to power up and give it away.
Go around,
So having that awareness might have helped save them in that scenario. There was the change of wind that they didn't expect and Tower didn't report on. So that meant they were coming in very fast. And then from my initial reading, it sounds like they flared too gently. They tried to kiss it down. I mean, being 700 plus meters in before the first gear is down, and then about another 800 meters after that before the second gear is down. That's more than half the runway before they've even started braking on a wet runway. That screams warning signs to me, and perhaps there should have been a go-around call much earlier.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't delved deep into that report. I haven't actually seen any like the aviation sort of regulators report that come out on that one. So I'm not sure why the decision-making process, why he didn't go around, that sort of stuff. But, it brings a lot of factors into it. Like, apparently the tower didn't have the capability to detect the wind shear and to report it straight away, that sort of stuff. So there's one thing, one of the holes lining up. Yeah, weather's always going to be a factor. It's going to be a massive factor when you're doing this sort of stuff. And wet runways.
That protection of not having any of those systems activate until both gear is down, I still think is a solid one. And I don't think you would say there was any fault with how the automation worked in that case in terms of the crash. You and I both know of an aircraft incident where aircraft flying along basically in the circuit at circuit altitude, very slow speed, and through a bit of pilot error, the thrust levers were pulled into the reverse in flight, and that aircraft didn't have that reverse protection. It was just just the mechanical protection of you shouldn't be able to pull the levers up over the gates into reverse because you would never give it that upwards motion to get it over the gate in flight. So it was just a mechanical protection. In this case, that failed because the pilot was pulling from the wrong position and pulled it over the gate. Reverses unlock in flight, and you very nearly had a aircraft write-off and a lot of life. These Airbus systems were designed to add another layer of protection to that.
So you can't select reverse airborne whatsoever, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. It will. The software is a second layer of protection then. You've got the mechanical gate as well on the Airbus, but it's software protection too that'll say no, you don't have that check of weight on wheels. I'm not going to allow you to deploy the reverser.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I used to fly. I was a flight engineer with the Caribous, and it had an overhead throttle system, and it had no software whatsoever in that aircraft. I think might have had a couple of megabytes in the GPS potentially. I don't know, but the rest was all mandrolic. And yeah, there was definitely a couple of instances where, because the throttles were overhead, and you push up about the distance of about that far, and then bring it backwards into reverse, and that always said idle, and just sort of have their hand ready to hit, and literally, and if you were doing STOL, like short landings, they put the hand there, so that literally the action of the aircraft hitting the ground was enough to jerk your hand up to put it into reverse to get it done that quick. And there was a couple of excited guys that, were definitely a little bit airborne, probably 50, maybe 20 feet. And you'd hear it, you could hear the definite pitch change, and you could feel it hit the deck a lot harder than it should have. So I'm pretty glad that we've now got some pretty good systems in place to prevent like that. None of that was ever stupidly dangerous. It's probably a bit questionable, but it never got stupidly dangerous. But it's good now that we've got so many systems in place to prevent that sort of thing happening. Yeah. And it's kind of cool. Yeah. So from that flight 2904, the Lufthansa one, I think one of the there's always recommendations that come from crashes, and especially that one, because when the aircraft actually ran, that aircraft actually went off the runway at the end. Like he had to steer it off the runway because he was going to hit a building that was a few hundred feet past the threshold. So he turned it right, and he ended up hitting I think an antenna or something, which killed the pilot in the right hand seat pretty well instantly, and started a fire which ended up killing one of the passengers or two of the passengers. So there's got to be some sort of outcome from that, from the organisation. And I believe they changed it used to be 6.3 tons. It had to be of pressure of weight on the landing gear. They changed it to 2 tons from that. Is that correct? Is that pretty well fleet wide, Airbus fleet wide?
It sounds reasonable. Yeah, not sure of the exact figure.
Yeah. So they've just picked up. Yeah, they've just picked up where that sensor is and just probably put it lower in the strut so it actuates earlier or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, cool. Whenever I think A320, because of my age, I remember the one that the very first A320 that crashed. It was an Air France flight. Remember the one that crashed into the trees as it did an air show flyby? And it's a classic aviation video of. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Now we've got fly-by-wire. How do we make this work in an aircraft? And he completely. It was just not a complete understanding of what the aircraft can do and what it does. And I think he tried to do a a high alpha flyby at an air show with passengers on board, which would never happen these days.
No,
I think he's the very reason why you are not allowed to do anything stupid with passengers on board anymore.
That's right.
And he did a like 30 or 35 degree alpha flyby at this air show, really slow, and then it just wouldn't go around. It just he went to Toga and nothing happened, and he just plowed straight into a forest of trees. Yeah, it's disgusting to watch, isn't it?
And having a bit more of a read through that, I guess I always had slightly wrong impression of how that unfolded. I thought originally years ago that he had tried to correct it, the automation hadn't let him, and he was stuck in a situation where he flew into the trees. Yeah. I think there was a lot of things at play, and they deliberately disabled one of the protections for the purposes of the flypast. Yeah, that's probably how they got rid of the system. But yeah, the issue was a lot of mishandling, a lot of non-briefed late changes and unfamiliarity with the airfield and the area, leading to very late recognition that they had mishandled it and that they were coming up on those obstacles, those trees. And unfortunately, for the purposes of the fly past, they were back at nearly idle thrust. And the spool up time for that kind of jet engine to get up to high thrust, where it is actually providing enough power to get away from the ground and clear those trees, they just didn't recognise it early enough. So they had tried, and the automation wasn't stopping them from trying to recover. It was stopping them from increasing the angle of attack, but that's because they were so slow. They were all the way back at the stall angle already. So if it had allowed him to pull more pitch up, they would have stalled and gone down into the ground and trees harder than they did in the end. So yeah, as they collected the trees, the engines were actually spooling up to give them enough thrust to climb away, but just not in time. Then hit the trees, and that of course shreds the engines, and game over from there.
Everyone actually survived that crash.
Yeah, right.
I don't think anyone actually died, which is surprising.
Yeah.
Actually, let me Google it quickly.
Yeah.
But I'll have a quick look, because I don't want to do bad facts. That would be bad. That would be all bad.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but
especially when you see that smoke pool from the forest on the video. Sorry? Especially when you see that smoke plume erupting from the forest in the video.
Yeah, it was a huge explosion, wasn't it? Yeah. From what I do remember, the one of the big problems getting out was actually the doors. The people couldn't open the doors because there was a tree right outside there, right outside the airframe, so they couldn't open the door. And they had to figure out how to actually get out of the aircraft. Yeah. Good old Wikipedia normally helps quite well. One day I'll actually have, three. There was three people, unfortunately, died that day. 50 injured, but 133 survivors. So it's pretty good. Can't beat that. Anyway, yeah. One day, hopefully, I'll have someone that can. Hey, man, can you check that for me? And they can fact check stuff for me as we cruise along. We're not quite there yet. That's cool. So, what's your roster like? With going for pretty good.
Yeah, fantastic. We've got a bit of a glut of FOs in my base at the moment, so it's leading to a reasonable amount of time off, better than I expected. Cool. Compared to time on, and quite a reasonable monthly hours average. So not working too hard,
but still getting the hours that you want.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So what's the sort of mix between ex-military guys and GA, the pilots that have flown only GA their entire career?
At my company, I'm the only military person or ex-military person I've met. There is one other whose name comes up every time I say, "Hey, I'm ex-military." They say, "Oh, do you know this guy?"
And do you know him?
I guess we're renowned as being that rare at that company.
Oh, wow. Yeah, right.
Whereas you look at something like Qantas, and I think it'd be a much higher percentage
Sure.
Of excellent
That's good.
guys over there.
Oh, well, good for you, mate. It's good.
Yeah. It
Plays
makes
quite
me
well
novel
for
and
you.
different.
Yeah.
No one's sick of us already.
Sorry?
No one's sick of us already. My company.
Yeah, and you're just walking around with this massive grin on your face all day long, just big shit-eating grin, like, yeah, this is great. I love this job.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure you love the military. Sorry?
Yeah, but myself and my friends who have recently gone to the airlines, we walk in and it seems a bit of grass is greener attitude. Those guys are sure, the military must have been great. Don't know why you ever left. And, they're got their usual complaints about their own lifestyle, their own job. And we just shake our heads and say, you don't know how good you've got it. This is a million times better.
The, flying in the military is awesome. Some of the things we get to do and some of the places we go and get to see, and especially in Hercules, what's the old analogy? Taking you to the world's greatest shitholes for the last 50 years. That's true. But you also get to go to some good places as well.
There are definite highlights to that career.
Yeah.
Just sadly, the day-to-day is just not that exciting.
Look, it's just one of those things. And I think I remember you saying it's like you get on the train in the morning, you go to work, you get off the train at Sydney Airport, go upstairs, get your iPad, get on the plane and go. That would be pretty fun.
Phenomenal. Yeah. No. So if just jumping in an aircraft and flying is your career goal, then it's perfect.
Yeah.
Exactly what I was after.
Yeah, it's cool, and you get you probably get different legs every day. Australia's a big country, so you get to go to some pretty cool places. So
if you're based out of one of the big cities like Sydney or Melbourne, you get an incredible amount of variety.
Yeah, nice. Cool. That does sound good. And so long as it helps the family life and all that sort of stuff, then we're all good. It's a good thing. Yeah. So what else is going on? Anything else good?
Hobbies. Got to make the most of this free time I get.
Oh yeah. Oh, what are you?
Hobbies, board games.
Yeah. How's Batman going? Tell us a bit about that. What are you doing with Batman?
Small miniatures conversions this week. So I've been converting up a mini onto a larger base and a motorbike. It's my pet project at the moment.
Yeah. That'd keep you fairly busy, and with your plentiful downtime, I'm sure it gives you something to do.
When I'm not looking after the baby, yep.
When you're not looking after the baby, I know how you feel. I've literally got my baby monitor on right there. She's asleep at the moment, and keep an eye on the time, and she'll be awake, and we'll wait and see. Yeah, no, that's definitely it's all about getting that balance between having fun with the baby, making sure they're eating, feeding, and eating and sleeping really well, and getting plenty of cuddles. But when you can do extra things in downtime, that's awesome. Yeah. So are you doing you still doing your Batman, like your miniatures sort of like meetings and shows and stuff?
Yeah. Have the occasional meet up game day with friends.
Nice.
Weekend days. A real mixed bag at the moment, whether or not I get them on or off. I think I had 2 months of nearly every weekend day off and got plenty of games days in with the friends. Whereas November, I don't think I've got a single weekend day off.
Damn.
Swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, I know how you feel. I've worked a fair few weekends in the last couple of months myself, but it's good. Yeah. I don't mind weekdays off. They're good fun. Cool. And any good movies that you've seen recently?
I'm about to go out and see The First Man.
Oh, mate, I wish you'd seen that. I'd love to. We could talk about that for like 5 hours quite easily.
Oh, yeah. The mother-in-law is coming up for babysitting duty this weekend. That means date night. So go see The First Man. Good.
I will have to do another meeting and talk about First Man for quite a while, because it's amazing. I think it's going to win an award for best lighting, or lack thereof, if you know what I'm saying. Like, it's the space scenes with where obviously there is no light on the dark side of the planet is pretty well bang on. It's like, actually, you know what? Every single other movie I've seen, like Apollo 13 and, like any documentary you see in space, they light up the spacecraft really well. And you think, oh yeah, that's what it looks like inside. But First Man, it's just like, without any spoilers, it's just like, it is really dark inside that tin can. And that is actually, it's like, wow, you know what? That is actually probably what it's really like. We've been lied to the entire time for the sake of Hollywood.
Fairly hard story to give spoilers for.
You definitely need, you definitely need to know your history, like your Neil Armstrong and NASA history, to understand it. Like I took my wife, and she was like, "Yep, it was good, it was fine." But for someone who knows the background to all of his story, you're like, "Wow, they've actually done that. They nailed that scene. That is really cool." Yeah. So, well, no, enjoy seeing it. That'll be fun, and we'll talk about that some other time. Yeah. All right. Now, look, mate, that sounds really good. Thanks for. You got anything else you want to chat about?
No, more than happy for now.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, thanks for
But yeah,
coming on.
the mental health aspect is a whole nother can of worms. Always interested to dig my teeth into because I had my fair share of episodes of people in my family,
Okay.
so become fairly near and dear to me. I don't know if you got the chance to go down to Ian Carter. Was a presentation by the New South Wales Deputy Mental Health Commissioner.
Okay.
Came out late last year, and it was just an afternoon of sitting and hearing his stories and perspectives, and then a lot of people in the audience sharing fairly confronting stories of issues they've personally or more often had immediate family members dealing with in their lives. And found it a very challenging but interesting topic. And
Definitely. No, that's good. I'm glad you mentioned that. That's real good, Steve. Because what for those that don't know, that's what we want to do with CrewFusion. So, I'm being human factor. Like, I'm right into the human factors in what happens with case studies with aircraft crashes, and even now I'm delving into like industrial incidents. It's not all about aviation anymore. There's so many industries that human factors is now becoming a big part of what they're doing, like the rail industry and even farming. Like I struggled initially to find what human factors has to do with farming, but it's there's quite a lot to it actually, which is quite interesting. But
nursing would be another big one. I think they've started, and I can imagine a huge amount of human factors issues there, and quality of doctors' handwriting, and there's a light-hearted one, but the fatigue around it and the pressure that they're through all the time. Absolutely, being a field.
Absolutely. And operating, like the amount of equipment they operate, if they've found smarter ways to operate it, like due to some of the human factors that they've looked at, and pretty well there's a lot of automation in farming now as well. Like they can set a crop picker out to literally to crop to pick a field of strawberries, for example, and it's got sensors on it that will go, yep, those strawberries aren't ripe yet, we'll leave them, and that one's ripe, and we'll grab that one. And as it rolls along, and actually leaves the ones that aren't ready to pick yet, and does it all on GPS. And then next time, a week later, for example, it'll go out and go, yep, cool. I know where the unripe ones were, so as it goes down, it knows where it is, and will actually manage the crop field that way. That's incredible. But human factors. There's a lot to it. The mining industry, they weren't really touching on it at all. I was talking to a guy who only in the last sort of 3 or 4 years, fatigue management has become a big thing. It's like, wow, we weren't managing guys' fatigues. No, we're all big men and we can handle it. We all wear hard hats and we just get on with the job and do it. I said, oh yeah, what was your accident rate like? And he goes, oh, yeah, don't go talking about that. There's just too many. There's like too many injuries and guys getting workplace death all the time. But so CrewFusion, I like the human factors, but there's so much more to it. Like mental health nowadays, especially now that we understand more about it and can not manipulate it, but if you've got an understanding of why you're not sleeping, or why or an understanding on depression, or an understanding on why you're feeling the way you are, you can combat it. You can definitely combat it. You can seek help, that sort of stuff. But what we want to do is provide that education, so that workers know it. They can they go, yeah, I actually remember being told about sleep deprivation, or why I'm feeling depressed, or how to deal with this really traumatic event that I've just been through, or that somebody else has been through, somebody else in the family, for example. That's what we want to do. And another thing is leadership. They all tie in together. Human factors, leadership, mental health. They all tie in together to so that no matter who you talk to, no matter what organisation you talk to, there's tools in all of those subjects that can help. That can definitely help your organisation. So yeah, that's what we're getting at. So thanks for bringing up the mental health thing. It is important, especially like Prince Harry the other day just set mental health forward so far by what he said on his Royal Tour in Australia in the last sort of week or so, by saying, yep, he was out at Dubbo talking to, basically a bunch of farmers who live out in Dubbo, saying, he acknowledges that mental health out there is a very prevalent thing. There's a lot of suicides and that sort of stuff. And he said, don't be afraid to stand up anymore, guys. Like, you don't have to be big and strong and pretend that everything's okay. Get out there and seek help. The value that Australia got from that is amazing, because he's the biggest voice at the moment. They're immensely popular, and it was just awesome. It kind of brought a tear to my eye to hear him say it. It's like, oh, dude, thank you. That is awesome. Well done. Yeah, did you see it?
No, I hadn't seen it myself, so first I'm hearing. But very impressed to hear.
Yeah, and even when he did the, there was another event. I can't remember exactly what it was, but yeah, he did it a couple of times during the week. But Invictus as well, like just what he's dealing with there, like you're talking about injured military personnel. What he's done there, it just speaks volumes about the man, and he is he has set the course forward a very long way, and it's a great thing. It's good to see.
Just that you had mentioned it in your list of things that you are interested in covering at some point. And I had a run of things in my family. The mum had depression for a lot of years, and some medication to help her there. Being a nurse, working in emergency room and intensive care unit, seeing a lot of trauma.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So she's made lifestyle changes, one of which, moving to midwifery to try and see a lot less trauma and, have a happier time at work and look after herself that way. The old man then being an ambulance officer and, the physical demands of that job and the shift work that goes with it, compounded by all of the trauma that he sees regularly as an ambulance officer. And, a lot of years of that building up really affecting him. And then so some of the hard conversations that I needed to gear myself up to have with him to broach the issue and see how he was doing and try to convince him to recognise how unwell he was mentally and to give him the support he needed and get help. Very interesting time of my life. And I was glad that I had received so much awareness training over the years, try and get me in the right headspace and give me the confidence to launch into that conversation in the right way.
Yeah, nice. So they have sought the help that they required, have they? Yeah, it's really cool, hey? Mm. Yeah. No, it's interesting. I've got a very good friend that I met on the deployment who is an ambulance officer as well. Yeah, he definitely had a very rough time. Like when you might have problems at home as well. So if you've got problems at home and then you go to work and you're dealing with traumatic events every day, or even potentially just arseholes that you work with, it just doesn't make it easy. Like there's no escape.
There's no respite then.
And that's a very hard thing. That guy went through some pretty tough times. But it's just amazing. Like now, like he went off the grid for a little while, and there was a lot of people that were really worried about him because he was pretty prevalent on the social media side of things. He'd always be putting something up and letting us know how he was. He went really quiet. Everyone's like, So me and a mate of mine, we rang him a couple of times to see if we could get through to him. Had nothing. there was no answer for a number of days, and we're all, what's going on here? But through seeking help, I think he ran a marathon last week, like a full marathon. What's that, 42 Ks, is it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
That's like, holy crap, man, what a bounce back. It's just awesome. But it doesn't mean it's gone. It doesn't mean you've definitely gone and seek the help, and it's clearly helped with his attitude and the change in attitude and brought the son out. And that's really cool, and it's just awesome. It is so awesome to see it when that happens. But it doesn't mean it goes completely. There's always something that dwells in the back of your mind, always. So with that sort of thing, you just keep an eye on and make sure that forever and ever, even 20 years down the track, let's have a look back, see how he's going, and just continuously keep up to date with them and make sure that everything's going tickety-boo. Because it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to escape. That's for sure. Hey.
That's right. Well, life goes through cycles, and things are definitely going to get tough and hard for that person again. So trying to make sure that they feel they have the right coping tools and the right support in place for to deal with it better next time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. What you said before, the awareness training that we receive in the Air Force is just amazing. Like when we're told we have to go to like another briefing for mental health or unacceptable behaviour or whatever, you sort of go, okay, we'll go spend the time to do that. But I mean, I personally, I always come out of them going, yes, I'm so glad I just learned that, because I can relate it to so many things that are going on right now. And it sticks in the back of your mind, and you can bring it out from time to time and actually use it. It's really good. I'm really glad that like the military does train us like that, and it's repetitive training every 6 months or every year. It's just awesome. I wish there's a lot of industries that need to get up to speed with that sort of stuff, because the value is awesome. Like you said, you were able to recognise with your family what was going on, so you were able to sort of jump in and have the hard conversations that are definitely hard. It's like an intervention, isn't it? It's like, how do I do this and still be friends?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, definitely. I was talking. So I like to work with some of the companies, some of the organisations that I like to work with. Construction, transport, so trains, trucking, that sort of stuff. Aviation. They're all high reliability organisations, right? So and what I mean by high reliability is if something were to go wrong, if there was an accident, a workplace accident or a very serious accident, then that would result in a lot of hurt for that company or that organisation, right? So like a plane crash or a train crash, or even just a construction worker dies in a construction accident, and it's on the news. It's a big deal, right? It's significant, and affects the whole organisation. It affects workplace health and safety laws. It affects human factors behaviour, all that sort of stuff. And that's what we need to touch on. That's a really important part of it, because those high reliability organisations in the civilian world haven't been doing the same mental health awareness, unacceptable behaviour awareness that the military has been doing for years. So it's a good thing that it's sort of starting more now. It's getting more prevalent. But the guys I talk to, it's only started in the last 2 or 3 years, which is scary. Like, come on, it's 2018. Like, that should have been this sort of culture came in, mid 2000s, like 2005, 2006ish. That this sort of stuff was important. But there's still a lot of guys that don't receive the annual stuff. They get a blasting at the beginning when they're getting fire hosed with a whole lot of information, and they retain probably 20 or 30% of it. But it's the annual stuff that's important. So yeah, absolutely. Good stuff, Steve. I love it. Good chat. Yeah,
it's been good.
Yeah, man. All right.
Coming into it.
Sorry.
Interested to see how we'd go.
Yeah. How do you feel doing the first podcast? I'm freaking out. No, look, it's
That's all right.
that's a whole other thing. Like, we live in a very resourceful age. Like you and I, we both live in Sydney. We live 40 minutes away from each other, so we can have this chat face to face anytime. But just being able to do it like this, have a chat about some pretty cool subjects that might actually mean something to someone someday. Hopefully, maybe, who knows? That's cool. And if I get a few of these under my belt, then and we actually help someone or just one person, then I'm happy. That's all I need to do. Or and you've helped me today and I've helped you today, that's amazing. That's exactly what we want to do. We live in a resourceful age. I can do this with someone in London. And like next, I can hang up from you and call someone in London, depending on the time. No, it's a bit late. Right, let's go Indonesia or somewhere. Anywhere, and do this. And we are no longer stovepiped to having to work in our own local area. We can work globally so easily. Right. I'm doing this. I'm managing to squeeze this in while my baby's asleep, and actually solve some of the world's problems. Like, that's awesome. I'm so chuffed. And that's what we want to do, mate. So thanks very much, mate, for coming on today. Thanks for your candid nature, telling us some of the things that's going on.
No problem.
Hopefully someday we'll see you again. And your screen's frozen again. Don't know what it is. It must be an internet thing, but that's okay. That's all good, buddy. All right, mate. So thanks again for coming today, mate. You have a nice afternoon, and we'll chat.
Likewise. Yeah, cheers, mate. Good talking to you. Catch you soon.
Bye.
Thanks very much for coming along to the CrewFusion Zoom room today, folks. Before you go, I'd like to give you a rundown on an initiative that we at CrewFusion are really, really excited about. Global Goals are a group of 17 Sustainable Development Goals that were set up by the United Nations General Assembly in 2015, and they're designed to really transform our world. The 15-year plan, titled the 2030 Agenda, aims to find solutions for social and developmental issues such as poverty, hunger, health, education, global warming, gender equality, providing clean drinking water to those that need it, sanitation, renewable energy, urbanisation, environment and social justice. These are issues that billions of people face globally, so CrewFusion would like to do its part in trying to help fix them. Considering the part that we play in educating people, we feel it would be fitting to aim our funding towards quality education and the promotion of lifelong learning opportunities. Whether that means providing books or internet to those that need it the most, CrewFusion is so happy to be playing its part. We've started a program to ensure that a percentage of whatever CrewFusion earns through its social media pages and training packages will go towards this amazing initiative. So thanks for joining in today, and be happy with the fact that your like, your comment or your subscription to the CrewFusion social media pages goes towards helping real issues that are facing our planet today.
We can be.
We must be the first generation
to end extreme poverty.
The generation
Most determined
to fight injustice
and inequalities.
The generation that saves the planet from climate change.
And this is how it will get done.
The global goals.
A 15-year plan
For everyone. Everywhere.
With no one left behind.
We will live in a world
where nobody
anywhere
lives in extreme poverty.
Where no one
goes hungry.
where no one
Wakes in the morning
Asking if there will be food today.
We will live in a world where no child has to die of
diseases we know how to cure.
And where proper health care
is a lifelong right for us all.
We will live in a world
where everyone
goes to school.
and education gives us the knowledge
and skills
For a fulfilling life.
We will live in a world where all girls and all women have equal opportunities
to thrive
and be powerful
and safe.
We cannot succeed if half the world is head back.
We will live in a world
where all people can get clean water
and proper toilets
at home, at school, and at work.
We will live in a world where there's
sustainable energy for everyone.
heat, light, and power for the whole planet.
without destroying the planet.
We will live in a world where economies prosper. And new wealth
Leads to decent jobs
For everyone.
and we will live in a world where our industry,
our infrastructure and our
Best innovations
Are not just used to make money, but to make all our lives better.
We will live in a world
where prejudices and extremes of inequality
are defeated
inside our countries
and between different countries.
Where people live in cities and communities
that are safe, progressive,
and support everyone who lives there.
Where we replace
what we consume.
Planet where we put back what we take out of the earth.
We live in a world that is decisively rolling back the threat of climate
change.
Where we restore and protect the life in our oceans and seas.
We'll restore and protect
life on land,
the forests,
animals,
the earth itself.
with peace between and inside countries.
Where all governments are open.
And answer to us for what they do at home and abroad.
And the justice rules.
With everyone equal before the law.
where all countries and we their people
Work together.
in partnerships of all kinds
to make these goals a reality.
For everyone, everywhere.
These are the United Nations global goals
for sustainable development.
Let's get to work. Let's make it happen.